Hello, Rokeby. Right, this is Mr. Atkinson, and I'd like to introduce you to Murphy and Guinness, the pups. Okay, they are going to help me read the London Eye Mystery to you. Chapter 19, The Boy on the Train. Mum came in and Kat sat on the desk on top of the photos in the theory list. Hi guys, Mum said. Hi Mum, said Kat. She swung her legs backwards and forwards and stared into space. This isn't much of a half term for you, is it? Don't worry, Mum, we're fine. Mum smiled. Then she said the police were visiting us again and we should go downstairs in case they wanted to ask us anything. And then she went out and Kat got off the desk. She hid the theory list and the photographs in the little drawer under my desk. Then she picked up the souvenir picture and said that she'd hand it over to the police just in case it was of some use. Then she went out of my room. I reopened the drawer. I found my favourite photo, the one Salim had taken of Kat and me on the footbridge. It looked as if the corner of the London Eye was emerging from my shoulder. Then I put it in my book of weather systems, between cyclones and anticyclones. Then I followed Kat downstairs. Soon the police car drew up and Mum and Aunt Gloria took the same places on the sofa and Dad showed in Detective Inspector Pierce, who was on her own. She sat on the same chair as yesterday. Nobody said anything for a minute. Then Kat went up to her and offered her the souvenir photograph. I'm sorry we didn't give it to you sooner, Kat said. I meant to yesterday, but we forgot. Didn't we, Ted? I said. D.I. Pierce took the photo and shook her head and smiled. We already have that one, Kat, she said, along with 64 others. But thanks anyway. Aunt Gloria grabbed the photograph and peered at it. What is this? It's a picture of the people in the pod, Aunt Gloria, I explained. The pod that... Not a trace of Salim in any of them, I'm afraid, Detective Inspector Pierce said, nor in the CCTV footage. I've been checking much of it myself. In that particular pod, a rather large gentleman, she leaned over and pointed to the big white-haired man in the raincoat, stood in the same spot for nearly the whole ride and blocked much of the camera's view. Aunt Gloria tossed the picture down on the floor near my feet. I picked it up. You know what I think? She said. I think you never went up that damn wheel in the first place. That's an interesting theory, Aunt Gloria, I said, and one that I considered too, but... Ted, Mum said. She put her finger to her lip. That is body language even I have learned to read. It means, be quiet. There was another silence. Then the inspector said she had a possible lead. A boy matching Salim's description had been seen at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon by a guard at Euston Station, dodging the ticket barrier and getting on a train just moments before the doors were locked. A train? What train? Aunt Gloria said. An intercity between London and Manchester. Manchester? But that's where we'd just come from. Why would Salim go back there? The boy, if it was Salim, was on his own. Unfortunately, that's where we lose sight of him. The guard on the train has no memory of him. He could have got off at any of the stops in between, but the Manchester police have checked to see if Salim is perhaps in Manchester. With his dad, Aunt Gloria said. He is not with his father, I'm afraid. It was the first place we looked. The inspector produced Salim's address book. We spoke to everybody you told us he was close to. His cousins Ramesh and Yasmin. Your neighbours, the Tysons. His school friend, Marcus Flood. And his old friend from primary school, Paul Burridge. And? None of them say they've heard from him since he left the day before yesterday. I said. That's... Hush, Ted, said Mum. If Salim did go to Manchester, D.I. Pierce said to Aunt Gloria, where do you think he'd most likely to go? Aunt Gloria stared into space in front of her and said, I don't think, she said. Sorry? I think the boy on the train is like the boy last night, the boy in the morgue. The boy you thought was Salim and wasn't. D.I. Pierce reached over and touched Aunt Gloria's hand. I'm sincerely sorry about that, Gloria. We didn't have a proper photo ID then. We do now. From a brown envelope she'd been holding, she took out a photo of Salim and showed it to us. Your ex-husband gave us this. Would you say it's good likeness? Salim was in a school blazer, with a sweatshirt underneath and a faint line of a moustache over his lips. He was not looking either happy or sad in the photograph, because his lips were straight, neither up nor down. That's him, Aunt Gloria whispered. I bought 2 copies so that Salim could give one to his father, to Rashid. I do it every year. I don't know why. I don't even know if Rashid has them framed. I don't... The doorbell rang. And Dad went out into the hall to see who it was and I heard voices, and then in walked a tall Indian man in jeans and a green t-shirt. Speak of the devil, Aunt Gloria hissed. I only heard her say this because I was standing next to her. I didn't see anything particularly satanic about the strange man. I thought he must be another plainclothes police officer. My hand flapped. What's this? The man said. Have you found my son? He looked at Aunt Gloria. She looked at him. What are you doing here? I'm looking for my son. What else? Trust you to lose him. Maybe Satan had entered the room after all, because everybody started talking very loudly. I put my hands over my ears, but I could still hear them. I counted the people in the room. 7. I tried to guess the ages of those I didn't know. Then I added up the ages, actual approximate, of all present. When I arrived at the figure of 233, and worked out that the average age was 33.3 recurring, everyone was still shouting their heads off. The difference between laughing your head off and shouting your head off is that with one you are happy, and with the other you are angry. I like it much better when people are laughing their heads off. D.I. Pierce got up from her chair. I'd better go, she said, but I'm not sure that anyone listened except for me and Dad, who had not joined in the shouting earlier. Dad showed her out to the hallway, and I followed. You could all still hear the raised voices in the living room. Goodbye, Mr. Spark, D.I. Pierce said. I'm sorry again about last night. I felt Dad's arm on my shoulder tighten. Will you find out who that poor boy was? We're working on it, Inspector Pierce said. And as for Salim, when everyone's calmed down, can you ask them if they would agree to us calling in the press? The press? Yes, if Salim's picture gets into the news stories, somebody who's seen him might come forward. Dad nodded. I'll ask them. Inspector Pierce, I said. My hand flapped. Salim got a call on his mobile yesterday at approximately 10:50 a.m. He said it was a friend calling from Manchester to say goodbye. Did he? How interesting. She smiled at me, which meant she and I could be friends. If only some of my offers had half your brains, Ted. Then she nodded and walked down the tiny garden path to where the police car was parked. Dad and I went back to the living room. Rashid was saying that the police had burst into his busy evening surgery last night and that all his patients must have thought he was another Dr. Death, which was the name news editors gave to a very evil doctor who killed lots of his patients instead of making them better for no other reason than he liked doing this. Aunt Gloria was clinging to a cushion, as if she was about to throw it at him and saying that all he ever cared about was what other people thought about him. Mum was standing up and holding Kat by the elbow and ushering us back into the hallway. She closed the living room door behind her. God almighty, let's leave them to it, she said. Let's get a pizza for pity's sake. So we did. Pity must have been pleased because we had 4 enormous pizzas at the pizza restaurant nearby. I had a Coca-Cola and Kat had a Sprite and Mum had a beer and Dad had a bottle of sparkling water. Dad and I ate all of ours, and Mum and Kat swapped their last slice and left only bits of the crust, which meant that everybody had been extremely hungry. And over the meal, we did not talk about Salim. I talked about thunderstorms and why they happen, and Kat showed Dad how she had removed the silver nail polish from her hands, and he said he was glad Catwoman had gone back to the moon. When we got back, Rashid and Aunt Gloria were sitting on the sofa together, arm in arm. This puzzled me until I remembered what Mum says about Cass and me having a love-hate relationship. And I worked out that the same was true of Rashid and Aunt Gloria. Mum said to Rashid he was welcome to sleep on the couch if he wanted to. And he said was she sure? And she said she was. And he said she was most kind and he would. And then Cass and I were told to go upstairs to bed. So we did. Okay. More to come very soon. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're making the most of some time at home. See you soon.